My parents funded my brother's failed business but left me in debt. Now they want to meet my daughter, but I drop a truth bomb that changes everything. I, 34F, have always had a complicated relationship with my parents, especially when it comes to money. Growing up, it was clear that my older brother Jake, 37M, was the golden child. He could do no wrong in their eyes, while I was constantly criticized and made to feel like I wasn't good enough. This dynamic only intensified as we got older. When Jake announced he wanted to start his own business after college, my parents were thrilled. They immediately offered to help fund his brilliant idea for a tech startup. I had just graduated as well and was hoping to go to grad school, but when I tentatively brought up the possibility of some financial help, I was shut down. "We've already set aside money for Jake's business. You'll have to figure out how to pay for grad school on your own," my mom told me dismissively. So while Jake got to chase his entrepreneurial dreams with a generous financial cushion from our parents, I was left to take out massive student loans. I worked multiple part-time jobs while in grad school just to make ends meet. It was an incredibly stressful time, but I was determined to get my degree and prove myself. Meanwhile, Jake's business was floundering from the start. He had no real experience or concrete plan, just a vague idea and misplaced confidence. My parents kept throwing more and more money at it, convinced it would turn around eventually. I tried to gently suggest that maybe Jake needed to rethink his approach, but I was accused of being unsupportive and jealous. Fast forward 5 years, and Jake's business had spectacularly failed. He had burned through hundreds of thousands of dollars of our parents' money with nothing to show for it. Did they hold him accountable at all? Of course not. They comforted him about his bad luck and helped him get back on his feet. I, on the other hand, was drowning in student loan debt despite having a good job in my field. The monthly payments were crushing, and I could barely afford a tiny studio apartment. When I asked my parents if they might be able to help me out even a little bit with my loans, given how much they'd spent on Jake, they acted like I was being entitled. "We can't just bail you out of your poor financial decisions," my dad lectured. The hypocrisy was staggering. Eventually I met my now husband, Alex. He was supportive and understanding about my strained relationship with my family. We got married in a small ceremony that my parents and Jake barely acknowledged. When I got pregnant a couple years later, they suddenly wanted to be involved again. I kept them at arm's length, not ready to let them back in after years of favoritism and dismissal. Our daughter Lily was born 8 months ago, and she's the light of our lives. My parents have been hounding us to meet her, sending guilt-tripping messages about how we're depriving them of their grandchild. I've been putting them off, still unsure if I want them in Lily's life given how they treated me. Last week, they showed up unannounced at our house on a Saturday afternoon. I was furious that they would ambush us like that, but I reluctantly let them in. They immediately started cooing over Lily, acting like doting grandparents who had been there all along. As they were holding her, my mom casually mentioned that they had just helped Jake buy a house. "We're so proud of him for getting back on his feet after that business setback," she said. "He really deserved a fresh start." Something in me snapped. All the years of resentment and hurt came bubbling to the surface. I took Lily from them and handed her to Alex, then turned to face my parents. "A fresh start?" I said, my voice shaking. "You mean like the fresh start you never gave me? The one you're actively preventing me from having by refusing to help with the massive debt I'm in because of your blatant favoritism?" They looked shocked, like they couldn't believe I would dare bring this up. My dad started to say something about how I was an adult who made my own choices, but I cut him off. "No, you don't get to rewrite history," I said firmly. "You chose to pour money into Jake's half-baked business idea while leaving me to struggle. You enabled his failure and then bailed him out, but you've never once offered to help me despite knowing how much I'm struggling with student loans. And now you're buying him a house? Do you have any idea how hurtful and unfair that is?" My mom tried to interject with some excuse about how they thought Jake's business was a sure thing, but I wasn't having it. "It doesn't matter what you thought," I continued. "What matters is that you've consistently prioritized Jake over me our entire lives. You've given him endless second chances and financial support, while I've had to fight for everything on my own. And you have the audacity to show up here unannounced and act like everything's fine?" I could feel tears starting to form, but I blinked them back. I wasn't going to let them see me cry. "Do you want to know the truth?" I said, my voice low and intense. The real reason I've been hesitant about letting you meet Lily? It's because I'm terrified you'll treat her the way you treated me. That you'll make her feel less than, that you'll favor her cousins the way you favored Jake. I don't want her to ever feel the way I felt my entire life, like I'm not good enough, like I don't deserve the same love and support. The room was dead silent. My parents looked stunned, like they'd been slapped. Alex stood behind me, still holding Lily, a supportive presence at my back. I've spent years in therapy working through the damage your favoritism has done, I continued, my voice breaking slightly. Do you have any idea how much it hurts to feel like your own parents don't believe in you? To watch them bend over backwards for your sibling while leaving you to drown? I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to say next. I think you need to leave now. And I don't want you to contact us again until you've taken a long, hard look at your behavior and are ready to sincerely apologize and make amends. Not just empty words, but real, tangible changes and acknowledgement of the harm you've caused. My dad started to protest, but my mom put a hand on his arm. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. We had no idea you felt this way, she said softly. That's the problem, I replied. You never bothered to ask. You never cared enough to see how your actions were affecting me. Well, now you know. The ball's in your court. They left quietly, looking shell-shocked. As soon as the door closed behind them, I burst into tears. Alex enveloped me in a hug, Lily nestled between us. I'm so proud of you, he whispered. You did the right thing. Over the next few days, I felt a mix of emotions, relief at finally speaking my truth, anxiety about potential fallout, lingering anger and hurt, but also a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, this would be a turning point. A week went by with no contact from my parents. Then, last night, I got an email from my mom. It was long and emotional, full of apologies and acknowledgments of their failures as parents. She said they had spent the week in serious reflection and discussion, and they realized how blind they had been to their own favoritism and the pain it caused me. The email went on to say that they wanted to make things right, if I was willing to give them a chance. They offered to pay off my remaining student loans entirely as a start. My mom also said they were going to sell the house they had bought for Jake and instead split that money evenly between us. Most importantly, she said they wanted to go to family therapy with me to work through our issues in a healthy way. They promised to respect my boundaries and earn back my trust slowly, on my terms. I broke down crying as I read it. It wasn't a magic fix for years of hurt, but it felt like the first genuine step towards healing our relationship that I'd ever experienced. I showed the email to Alex, who hugged me tightly and said, "This is huge. I'm so glad they're finally listening to you." I haven't replied yet. Part of me is cautiously optimistic, while another part is wary of getting my hopes up only to be hurt again. But for the first time in a long time, I feel like there might actually be a path forward with my parents. I'm going to take some time to process everything before I respond. I know we have a long road ahead if we're going to repair our relationship. But the fact that they're willing to acknowledge their mistakes and take concrete steps to make amends means more than I can express. Looking at Lily, peacefully napping in her crib, I feel a fierce determination. Whether or not things work out with my parents, I vow to break the cycle with her. She will always know she is loved, valued, and supported unconditionally. I will never make her feel the way my parents made me feel. As I sit here reflecting on everything that's happened, I realize that speaking my truth, as terrifying as it was, has opened up the possibility for real change. It's a reminder that sometimes we have to be brave enough to confront painful realities head-on if we ever want things to get better. I don't know what the future holds for my relationship with my parents. But I do know that I'm stronger now for having stood up for myself and my daughter. Whatever happens, I'll face it with the knowledge that I'm worthy of love and respect, something I've struggled to believe for far too long. If you've made it this far, thank you for reading my story. To anyone out there dealing with family favoritism or unequal treatment, know that you're not alone. Your feelings are valid, and you deserve better. Don't be afraid to speak your truth and set boundaries. It's not easy, but it can be the first step towards healing and positive change. Edit. Wow, I'm overwhelmed by the response to my post. Thank you all so much for your kind words, support, and advice. It means more than you know to feel heard and validated after years of doubting myself. To address a few common questions/comments. 1. Yes, I plan to get everything in writing before accepting any financial help from my parents. I'll be consulting with a lawyer to make sure everything is properly documented and above board. 2. I haven't decided yet if I'll accept the offer to pay off my loans. Part of me feels like I should, since it would be life-changing for my family. But another part worries it might create a sense of obligation or make it harder to maintain boundaries. I'm going to think on it more before deciding. 3. Several people have suggested that my parents' change of heart seems too sudden to be genuine. I understand the skepticism, and I share some of it myself. That's why I'm proceeding very cautiously and will insist on seeing consistent changed behavior over time, not just words. 4. To those asking about Jake's reaction, I honestly don't know. We're not close and I haven't heard from him. I imagine he's not thrilled about the house situation, but that's between him and my parents. 5. Family therapy is non-negotiable for me if we're going to try to move forward. I won't attempt to rebuild a relationship without professional help to navigate all the complex emotions and dysfunctional patterns. 6. A lot of you have asked how Alex feels about all this. He's been my rock through everything. He supports whatever decision I make but has encouraged me to protect myself emotionally and not feel pressured to forgive too quickly. 7. For those wondering about Lily, don't worry, I have no intention of keeping her from my parents forever if they genuinely change. But they will have to earn the privilege of being in her life, and it will be a gradual process with clear boundaries. I'm still processing everything and figuring out my next steps. I'll post an update once I've decided how to respond to my parents' email. Thank you all again for your support and insight. It's given me a lot to think about as I navigate this situation. Update, 3 days later. First of all, thank you again to everyone who took the time to read my story and offer advice. Your perspectives have been invaluable as I've tried to figure out how to move forward. After a lot of reflection and discussion with Alex, I decided to respond to my mom's email. I wanted to acknowledge their efforts to make amends while also making it clear that we have a long way to go. Here's a summarized version of what I wrote. Thank you for your email. I appreciate your willingness to reflect on the past and take responsibility for the hurt you've caused. Your offer of financial help and commitment to family therapy are significant steps that I don't take lightly. However, I hope you understand that an email and offers of money, while meaningful, don't instantly heal years of pain and damaged trust. I'm cautiously optimistic but also wary of getting hurt again. If we're going to attempt to rebuild our relationship, it needs to happen slowly and on my terms. I'm willing to start with family therapy sessions to work through our issues in a safe, moderated environment. I think this is the best first step before making any decisions about financial matters or increased involvement in each other's lives. I'll be looking for a therapist who specializes in family estrangement and reconciliation. For now, I'd like to keep our communication limited to email or scheduled phone calls, no surprise visits or constant messages. I need time and space to process everything as we work on healing. Regarding Lily, I'm not ready for you to have a relationship with her yet. That will depend on how our therapy sessions go and whether I see consistent, long-term changes in your behavior. She is my priority, and I need to feel completely confident in our relationship before involving her. I hope you can understand and respect these boundaries. They're not meant to be punitive, but to give us the best chance at genuine reconciliation and protecting my own mental health in the process. Thank you again for reaching out. I look forward to working together in therapy to address our past issues and hopefully build a healthier relationship moving forward. I sent the email yesterday morning. My mom replied a few hours later, saying they understand and accept my terms. She thanked me for being willing to try and assured me they're committed to doing the work in therapy for as long as it takes. So, that's where things stand now. I'm in the process of researching family therapists in our area who have experience with this kind of situation. It feels surreal to be taking this step after so many years of hurt and disappointment. I'm trying to stay cautiously hopeful while also protecting my heart. A part of me is still angry and wants to reject their overtures entirely. But a bigger part recognizes that this might be our one real shot at healing our family. If there's even a chance of having a healthy relationship with my parents, of Lily knowing her grandparents in a positive way, I think it's worth trying. I know it won't be easy. There will likely be setbacks and difficult moments as we unpack years of dysfunction. But for the first time, I feel like my parents are actually hearing me. That alone is huge progress. Thank you all again for your support and advice throughout this journey. It's meant the world to me. I'll continue to update as things develop with therapy and our reconciliation attempts. Wish us luck, we're going to need it. Final update, 2 months later. I can't believe it's been 2 months since my original post. So much has happened, and I wanted to give you all a final update on the situation. We've had 6 family therapy sessions so far, and I have to say, they've been both incredibly difficult and surprisingly productive. Our therapist is amazing, she's got a great balance of empathy and no-nonsense directness that seems to be working well for our family dynamic. The first couple of sessions were rough. There were a lot of tears and raised voices as years of pent-up feelings came pouring out. My parents were defensive at first, but our therapist was great at calling them out on it and pushing them to really listen and acknowledge my feelings. One breakthrough moment came when my mom finally admitted that their favoritism towards Jake stemmed from their own insecurities. Apparently, they had always seen him as the fragile one who needed extra support, while they viewed me as strong and capable. It was a messed up way of thinking that ended up hurting everyone involved. My dad had a harder time opening up, but in our 4th session, he broke down crying and told me how proud he was of the person I'd become despite their failures as parents. It was the first time I'd ever seen him cry, and while it didn't erase the past, it felt like a significant step. We're still working through a lot of issues, but I can genuinely say that I've seen real changes in my parents' behavior. They've been respecting my boundaries, really listening when I express my feelings, and making consistent efforts to show they care in ways that are meaningful to me. After a lot of consideration and discussion with Alex and our therapist, I decided to accept their offer to pay off my student loans. We got everything officially documented with a lawyer to avoid any potential issues down the line. It's been life-changing to be free of that debt, and I'm incredibly grateful while also still working through complicated feelings about it in therapy. As for Jake, apparently he didn't take the news about the house well at first. But from what my parents have told me, and I'm choosing to cautiously believe them, it led to some overdue difficult conversations between them. He started therapy on his own to work through his issues, which I think is a positive step for everyone. The biggest update is that last week, we finally felt ready for my parents to meet Lily. It was a short, supervised visit at our house, with Alex present the whole time. I was nervous, but it actually went better than I expected. Seeing my parents interact with Lily was emotional. They were so gentle and loving with her, and for a moment I felt a pang of sadness thinking about what could have been if they had shown me that same unconditional love growing up. But I'm also hopeful that this is the beginning of a new chapter for our family. We're taking things very slowly with their relationship with Lily. For now, it's limited to occasional short visits, always with me or Alex present. I've made it clear that their continued involvement in her life is dependent on their ongoing commitment to therapy and maintaining healthy boundaries. As for my relationship with my parents, it's still a work in progress. There are good days and bad days. Sometimes old hurts resurface and I find myself getting angry or defensive. But we're learning to communicate better, to address issues as they come up rather than letting resentment fester. One unexpected positive outcome of this whole experience is that it's brought Alex and me even closer together. Seeing how steadfastly he's supported me through all of this, how he stood by my side and advocated for me, has made me fall in love with him all over again. We've had a lot of deep conversations about family, parenting, and breaking generational cycles of hurt. I've also been doing individual therapy to work through my own issues and ensure I don't unintentionally pass on any unhealthy patterns to Lily. It's been challenging but incredibly rewarding. I'm learning to set boundaries, to value myself, and to trust my own judgment in a way I never have before. Looking back at where things were just a few months ago, it's almost hard to believe how much has changed. There were moments when I was sure I'd never speak to my parents again, and now we're cautiously rebuilding our relationship. It's not perfect, and I don't know if it ever will be, but it's so much better than I ever dared to hope. I want to be clear, I haven't forgotten the years of hurt and favoritism. I don't think you can ever really erase that kind of pain. But I'm choosing to focus on the future we're trying to build rather than dwelling on the past we can't change. To anyone out there in a similar situation, I want you to know that change is possible, but it takes a lot of work from all parties involved. It's okay to protect yourself, to set firm boundaries, and to demand better treatment from your family. You deserve to be valued and respected. I also want to acknowledge that reconciliation isn't always possible or even desirable in every situation. If I hadn't seen genuine effort and change from my parents, I would have been prepared to maintain distance for my own well-being and that of my family. There's no shame in choosing to limit contact with toxic family members. As for me, I'm cautiously optimistic about the future. I'm proud of myself for speaking up and setting boundaries. I'm grateful for the progress we've made as a family. And most of all, I'm determined to create a loving, supportive environment for Lily, free from the kind of favoritism and conditional love that marked my own childhood. Thank you all again for your support throughout this journey. Your kindness, advice, and shared experiences have been a source of strength and comfort. I may not post updates anymore, but please know that your words have made a real difference in my life. To anyone struggling with family issues, hang in there. Your feelings are valid, and you deserve to be treated with love and respect. Don't be afraid to speak your truth and stand up for yourself. Whether it leads to reconciliation or simply to your own healing, it's a vital step in breaking free from toxic family dynamics. Wishing you all the best. Edit. Wow, I'm honestly overwhelmed by the response to this final update. Thank you all so much for your kind words and support. Many of you have asked if I'd be willing to share any specific strategies or insights that have helped in our family therapy sessions. While every situation is unique, here are a few things that have been particularly helpful for us. 1. Establishing clear communication guidelines. We agreed on rules like no interrupting, using I feel statements instead of accusations, and taking breaks if things get too heated. 2. Acknowledging past hurt without getting stuck in it. Our therapist encouraged us to validate each other's feelings about the past while also focusing on how we want our relationship to look going forward. 3. Concrete action plans. Instead of vague promises to do better, we've set specific, measurable goals for how we'll show up for each other. 4. Regular check-ins. We have brief family temperature checks between therapy sessions to address any issues before they escalate. 5. Practicing forgiveness. This has been really challenging for me, but I'm learning that forgiveness is more about freeing myself from anger than absolving my parents of responsibility. 6. Celebrating small wins. We make a point to acknowledge positive changes and moments of connection, no matter how small. I hope these might be helpful to others navigating similar situations. Remember, healing is rarely linear, and it's okay to have setbacks. Be patient with yourself and prioritize your own well-being above all. Thank you again for being part of this journey with me. Your support has meant more than you know.